Yo, what
Top of the morning to you.
Back at it.
Yes, sir. Feels good.
Another week, another day, another dollar.
Got a little hiatus.
That's a good word for it. That is a good word. Speaking of how you guys are feeling. Boy, laughing, bro. I'm curious.
I thought you said.
Speaking of a good word, I want to know about your good word of the week, bro.
My good word of the week. You know, I'm feeling 9 out of 10. School be schooling, and again, stop having group projects and online classes. But yeah, 9 out of 10 just because of school.
No improper fractions, man. School really got you, bro.
No, really. I'm like 11 out of 10. I should be 11 out of 10.
Shoot, bro. I'll probably say 8 because I also got projects and assignments I got to do, and things are starting to ramp up, and it's getting ridiculous, man. I'm feeling like Boogie with the king, bro. It was getting ridiculous, bro. Man, all these assignments, bro, and it's like, man, one after another. So I'm about 8 out of 10, bro.
Boogie Gyra.
It's getting ridiculous, dog.
For me, I'll probably also have to say a 9 out of 10, bro. School do be schooling indeed, bro. So, yeah, that's what I'd probably say, bro.
Man, we below. That's
20s, 26.
It's like
we got a B, you know. We got an 87%.
The simple man right there. He got that quick math.
Oh,
like Huda.
So how you feeling? What's on your minds today, man? Anything?
Ooh, man, just talking about the sense of gratitude and like, just how much of a gift it is. And I think once we like truly grasp, what gratitude is, like we can look at like our life, circumstances, and we can see that as a gift from God instead of us, constantly complaining about things. And something that I heard is like, the people that have least in life, can still be happy because they have gratitude and they like really cherish the things they have in their life and not so much comparing their life to, what other people have in their life. So it's just like, man, like gratitude is something that we have to grasp. Like we have to put the things that God gives us, so like God's gifts, and plus gratitude like gives us joy, and joy in where we live. So let's talk about gratitude, man. It's important, bro.
I think gratitude is a state of like heart posture that all of us can have. Something that I realized in my time where God has been trying to grow this fruit in my life is that less is more. And it takes, God taking me through positions that are humbling to realize that I actually need less, which ultimately ends up being more than what I actually thought I needed. And God's always shown me that he's able to sustain me and he's able to be the sole provider in all the things that I need, which helps me be more grateful in times where, not realizing I actually have more than enough and more than I ever thought I actually needed and actually have. And so like the chase and pursuit of more is actually kind of like fraudulent because I really don't need those things. And God has shown me like, when you chase all these materialistic things, you always left unfulfilled. But if you can chase me, I can show you that what you have right now is more than enough. And he tells us this in Matthew 6:34, man, where he says, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things are added unto you. Like, I will give you the things that you need, and I will take care of you if you seek me and all those things.
No, I was thinking of, we have time after time in Hollywood, we have people that are rich and famous, have all the acceptance and all the money and all the girls and all that. Yet there's a bunch of people who year after year after every year, where there's someone famous who who commits suicide. And it's like, if they have all these things that we're striving for and they're not happy, then what makes us think that we're gonna be happy having those things? And so it's, I've listened to a podcast on dudes who've had everything, won awards and all this. It's like, they were kind of like, it didn't really change me. I was hearing someone, he said, I was happy for a week. He won a big award at Grammys. I was happy for a week, and now back to where everyday life was. I was also thinking of how I've been to poor places in Africa. I've been to poor places in Asia and all over. And yet it's some of the poorest people I've ever met are some of the happiest people that I've ever met. So obviously happiness isn't found in things, in wealth. It's found in a whole different thing. Now for us, all of us know it's found in Jesus. But again, time after time, people who have all these things are not the happiest, yet people who have less are happier. I think a different thing to it is comparison. If you're all here, then you're all just happy here. But if there's someone here and you're like, oh, well, he's there, well, I'm there. And I talk about every episode, but in comparison, we are comparing our worst to their best, and that's only gonna hurt us.
Yeah, man, that's true. I think to hit off on the topic of comparison is, I saw this illustration where it was like this homeless man was like, man, I wish I had that bike. And the person with the bike was like, man, I wish I had that Prius. And the person with the Prius was like, man, I wish I had that Lamborghini. And the person with the Lamborghini was like, man, I wish I had that private jet. So it's just like, man, like like delight in the things that you have now, because you don't know who wants the things that you have, or, you know, would die, you know, for something that you have, you know? And so it's just like, man, like we can't compare, you know, other people's lives, you know, to our life, because God has given us specific gifts and he's given us specific things to steward so that we can multiply the kingdom as well.
I think open our lens of comparison. I've always focused on like what others have and compared to like what I didn't have. But what that made me do was recognize, you know, what the things I don't have, and me focus on those things and being frustrated with those things. And God has shown me in the times where he's shown me where I have more, it's like, these are actually more valuable than the things that you're chasing after of. You know, for instance, I had a opportunity to take home one of my youth from my youth group, and it was just a cold night one day, and he was getting ready to walk home, and I was like putting my stuff in the trunk, and I was like, hey, like, where you going? He was like, I'm about to go home. And I'm like, I don't see no car or rider. Like, how you about to get home? He's like, I'm about to walk. So I said, how long is your walk? And he says, oh, it's about 40 minutes. I'm like, 40 minutes, bro? Like, come on, bro. Nah, bro, you about to hop in the car, bro. I'll take you home, bro. And so we hop in the car. I'm like, put your address in my phone. And he says, it says it's 5 minutes away. So I was like, this dude's about to walk 40 minutes to go home when I can take him home and it's a 5-minute drive. And it helped put things into perspective. Like, I'm comparing all the things that I don't have when this guy is happy about it. He's just getting home, opportunity to walk home. And me, I'm tripping like, oh man, like I gotta put gas in my car, but at least I have a car to put gas in. Like at least I have opportunity to have transportation to get me from point A to point B. So like seeing him, taking him home and see how this is like a normal lifestyle for him, where he would walk everywhere that he had to go, whether it was to like the convenience store, the grocery store, so even to school. Like for me in my life, I had all those times provided for me. Like I was able to either ride the bus or get dropped off, or and even when I, you know, got close to graduating, I got my own car. Whereas he's in a position where I was back then, and he didn't have none of that, and yet he was still content with what he had in position. So I think comparison is always, it strips us of what we actually have, and we can't see the value of what we have because we're always comparing and focusing on the things that others have.
I feel like everything's a perspective, and so we go through each day, we choose to like this and to hate that, and to like this and hate that. But when we have gratitude, we're kind of appreciating everything. You're appreciating a car. Now, some people got a cooler car, some don't, but I mean, some people don't even have one. And so it's like, where's your perspective at? Are you happy for it, or are you comparing it? You know what I'm saying? Because even having a car, again, maybe it's broken or old or something, you have a car, someone doesn't. He was saying someone's got this and someone else has this. It's like, bro, what would happen if you were happy for what you had? I think, you know, we get to choose how we see the things that we have. So I can always wish I had more, or I can be appreciative of the things that I have now. The choice is mine. You know what I'm saying? Happiness is really an internal thing. I think a problem that people have, people say, I'm going to be happy once I have this. Like, okay, but you're choosing that. You could be happy now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bro. And I think like the problem is not God's provision. The problem is our perception. Is like, man, like we just think the things that we have are just not enough, and we constantly, you know, once we get the things that, you know, we might be chasing after, we continually move the goalposts. Like we never come to a point to where we're satisfied. But that's the thing with our relationship with Jesus, is where he provides us that satisfaction when we actually have that gratitude in him and what he's done for us on the cross. So it's like, man, like we can't constantly, you know, want to move that goalpost and, you know, constantly chase the next thing, when we need to like delight in the now and delight in the things that God has already given us.
You know, and something that the Bible doesn't promise is happiness. Like nowhere in the Bible does it say like, I'm promising you happiness. Yet that's something that we all search for in life, in the things. And I think why it doesn't promise that, because happiness is such a fleeting feeling. Like it comes and it goes depending on your situation, depending on your perception in that moment. So I think it's important for us to focus on, you know, what can I learn in different situations? How can I be grateful in a situation that God places me in? Because that's the thing that ultimately builds character. I was talking to my cousin the other day, and we were talking about, you know, like being sick, and like you never appreciate how much good health is a blessing is until you're under the weather, man. Like, when you're sick, you got the stuffy nose and you're congested, bro. You're coughing, like you just wish that you were back in good health. But when you're in good health, man, you're chilling, man. Like I'm good, I'm fine, I'm just doing all my thing, you know, normal. But the moment you get under the weather, man, you like pray to God, heal me, restore me as soon as possible. And likewise, with the many blessings that we have, we tend to overlook them because it's not as, you know, flashy as some of the things that we see people have, maybe like the fancy car or the nice houses, or maybe having, you know, a lot of money. Like this is the things that like everybody can see and they're like glaring. But the things of having good health, having a roof over your head, having food on your plate daily and constantly, that's the biggest blessing of all, man. And God gives us the ability to breathe. Like, that's something that we should cherish every single day. Imagine somebody who's drowning, like they're gasping for air because they realize how much of a blessing it is to be alive. They want that air. But when you're walking around, how much do you try to think about, this is some nice air that I'm breathing in. Like, this feels really good. Like, none of us do that, man. So it's a perception that we have to, flip essentially and flip that so that we can honestly, see the blessing that God gives us and not overlook them.
I want to hit off his point of how we moved the post. You know what I'm saying? I think we always move it out there. I thought, what would happen if I moved it closer to me? What if I was the goal now? What if happiness is here now instead of I'm going to be happy here, I'm going to be happy there? What if I move with the goal post? I'm going to be happy where I'm at right now. How would I do each day? How many smiles? As we always say, if I'm happy, I can get other people happy. I can spread that happiness. But I can't spread happiness if I'm not happy. When I think of happiness, I think of joy too, because happiness is, I get a good grade or car, that's happy. But joy is everlasting. I think a lot of us, I'm not saying people, me included, are chasing happiness when what we actually want is joy. And the things that we're chasing won't even get us happiness. Yet we need that joy, and that joy, as he said, it comes from God, that everlasting joy. And so it's like, this post is where, and also, are you chasing happiness or are you chasing joy?
And that's real. And I think to hit on top of gratitude is like, gratitude like produces three things, bro. We treat God better, we treat ourselves better, and we treat people better. And so it's like, man, like once we have gratitude, like how much would that be able to change just the world around me just by the way I view things, or by the way, I say things to people, or by the way that I treat God. And something I also heard is like, when God blesses you, make sure you bless him back. Like, say thank you. And the same thing can go with people. When people, give you things like, man, make sure you like, hey, I appreciate that. Stuff like that. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but it's like, man, like make sure like you're returning the favor,
I think gratitude coincides with generosity. Like, you're more generous when you're more grateful, but how many people are generous when they're not grateful? Like, I've realized in my life, the times where I've been more willing to give is when I've been more appreciative of what I didn't have before. And so going through those humbling periods where God's like, now I got to take you this, I got to crush this out, I got to take this out of your life so you can see what I am in your life and be grateful that I'm in your life and not the thing that you're trying to place on this idol, because that's not going to get you anywhere. Jesus says at that well with the woman, like, I will give you something to drink that will make you never thirst again. And when you look at that, like, that's something we should be grateful for, that we already have fulfillment inside of Jesus, and we don't have to search for the materialistic things to have that fulfillment, that he already quenches that thirst in us. So when we move that goalpost closer to us and flip the perspective, it makes us more generous. Now, if I'm grateful, I can then rub off on you and tell you, hey man, like, you actually have these things that you might be overlooking in your life, and here's how you look at it from a different perspective. That'll give you a different look to help you feel better about what you're in a situation. Same thing with you. If you were able to flip the perspective, now all three of us going out into the world, man, we're making everybody generous and happy.
Teach one. I was told once that you can't be grateful for what you feel entitled to, because some of us feel entitled to certain things. So if I feel entitled to a car, then I have a car. I'm like, I'm not going to be that happy for it, because I feel like I should have, this is mine. It's like, no, man, not everybody has a car. The dude you're talking to who was walking, he didn't have a car. But if I feel entitled to a car, I'm not going to be happy for it. So you can't be grateful for what you feel entitled to.
Man, and I think it's also a blessing for the things that God doesn't give us, right? And I think like, sometimes, God uses those things to either prune us, or sometimes it can be like, just no flat out. Yeah. And so you even think about it like in the Bible, right? Like 2 Corinthians 12, when Paul is talking about the thorn in the flesh, right? He's like, man, this is something that God has given me to keep me close to the cross. So say if God gave you those things that you constantly move the goalposts for, would you still be coming to the cross? Like, would you still be approaching God, with that humble heart? How would you approach God? And I think sometimes we have the mentality to where we're like, like, God, like, you're lucky to have me as one of your followers, instead of we're like, God, like, you literally just paid the price for my sins, And I think it's all about flipping that perspective and flipping that mindset. Is like, God is not lucky to have us. Like, God is, he provides us life. He gives us life. With Jesus Christ dying for our sins, that's what gave us life. It's nothing that has to do with us,
That's so good, because kind of merging things, I'm understanding you correctly, like, that mindset is rooted in pride. So is entitlement. Like, entitlement is like, you know, we have this tendency to be like toddlers. Me, my, this is mine, I need this and I need that. And that ultimately gets us nowhere. Like, yeah, it's cute and adorable as a child, but Paul tells us when I was a child, I thought like a child, but when I was an adult, I began to mature, I began to think like an adult. Like, that's how we're supposed to be. Like, we're supposed to grow every single day, and it removes that entitlement when we grow up, because now we recognize that everything is a gift and it's not something that we earn. It's not something that we actually are supposed to have. It's something that God has given to us, which is grace that we don't deserve. And so what helped me realize, sometimes me struggling with entitlement in my life is every time the things that we deal with are not promised. Like, God doesn't promise to have a good family with loving people for every day of our lives. Like, sometimes they have to go early, and now you recognize the blessing that they are when they leave. And so it's important for us to cherish while we have the people, the places and things in our life right now, because tomorrow it can be going just like that. Like they says in James, like, life is a vapor, like it's a mist. It comes and goes, man. So in that vapor, in that mist, in that time frame, be able to cherish the things that you have, and don't feel entitled when you feel like the things are supposed to be with you every single day of your life, because God can quickly humble you and take it away so that he can show you some perspective of why you're not supposed to feel entitlement, but feel grateful.
Bro, he hit on such a good point, because so many times God gives us $100, and so all of us, tithe, like, God, look, I'm giving you $10. It's like, bro, we can't do much for God at all. God's giving us it. And so I feel like so many times we feel like we are doing God a favor by giving to someone else, by doing something, by helping out a homeless person. God, look, I'm doing this for you. Bro, it's all his favorite word. We're just a steward of it, bro. It's not actually ours at all. But we got that perspective of entitlement, or maybe just, again, it's thing of like, it's ours, that we can't give. But we can't do anything for God. He died on the cross for us. Yeah. We can't do anything back to him.
Literally.
It's all his. It's just stewardship.
Facts. And man, I think also looking in the Bible, bro, is like Deuteronomy is, man, like the Israelites turned an 11-day trip to a 40-year journey because of the lack of gratitude. And so, like, how many times in our life have we turned an 11-day trip to a 40-year journey just because of the lack of gratitude? Man, think of the places that God could have taken us if we had that gratitude, if we had that sense of, man, like, I'm just happy to be here. I'm here so I don't get fined, bro. Stuff like that. But instead, we're like, man, we want to complain about this and complain about that. But instead of like, man, like, this is something that God has given me. Like, it's either to, build me up, or it's to, give me a new experience, So it's, man, like, we got to treat everything like it's a gift from God, like, regardless of if it's just life or if it's, circumstances, because at the end of the day, we're breathing, right? So it's like, man, like, we should be able to cherish every single day because it is a gift from God,
On that journey, it's crazy because it was 40 years because they were walking by sight. Like, they didn't have the faith enough to know that God was a provider and he was going to ultimately get them to that promised land. They looked what was in front of them. It was the big desert. Like, it was just nothing in front of them. And so much to the point to where their entitlement got them thinking about the past. It was like, back in Egypt, man, we had this and we had that, but the whole time they were in bondage. And I feel like likewise for us, we're like, God, back then, man, I was with all these girls and I had all this money, and now you got me right here serving in ways that I'm serving. It's like, this is horrible. But God's like, I'm trying to show you what you're going to lead up to using these experiences right now, but you're going to make this process a lot longer, man, if you continue to avoid the pruning process. So it's important for us to not walk by sight, but to place our faith in Jesus. And it's not to get something or to go somewhere, but just to place our faith in the one who's delivered us from our sin, the one who's delivered us and saved us from our iniquities and our transgressions. I think that's important for all of us to resonate and meditate on. Like, our journey and our path is not to get us from point A to point B. Right. It's just to get us closer to God, man.
And man, that's huge, bro. And it's like, man, if you forget God's faithfulness in your past, man, you can't trust him with his provision in the future. So it's like, man, like, you have to be able to be like, man, I'm not looking at the things that I had in the past. I'm looking at the things that God brought me out of in the past. And so you think about the Israelites, man, like, God brought them out of Egypt. And so they're like, man, like, we're too focused on what we had in Egypt, what we were doing in Egypt. But it's like, man, God brought us out of that for a reason. And so it's the same thing. We have to walk in the things that God has for us now, instead of being like, man, like, I had this car, I had these many girls, stuff like that. But it's like, man, where has God placed you now? And look at the change of your character from then to now.
I feel like a lot of us are wanting to go back to something that God pulled us out of. I think it's because in that toxic situation, all of us were comfortable there. It's like, oh, I'm going to go back to him even though he treated me terribly. Why? Because you're comfortable there. You know what I'm saying? And we say all the time, you only grow if you're uncomfortable. So we literally had to seek out opportunities to be uncomfortable, and they're gonna get comfortable there. So then we gotta look for other opportunities. Some that he had said was that how God doesn't give us certain things on purpose. I think of me being a child, you know, I used to watch shows on TV, think, I wish I was a child star. All of us want to be child stars. You know what I'm saying? Dude. I used to do it. I used to do it. But it's crazy because now that we're all older, all those child stars are in the scandals, in the news, doing bad stuff. It's like, man, I wish that was me. But now I'm seeing why God didn't have me be a child star, because they're actually hurting. But up in the moment, I couldn't see it. And it's that thought of hindsight is 20/20. As we look back, it's like, this is why God didn't have me here. And so even at we're this age now, God doesn't have us certain places because he knows long term it might not be handy for us, helpful to us. And so God doesn't give us certain things for his cause, and for our cause.
The saying that we've always heard is God's rejection is his protection. You know, he knows all things, we don't. So if we're trying to go back to something that we think is good in our eyes, he knows that it's not good. He's going to protect us from our own ill will, from our own sin. And I think what's crazy is that you don't hear the saying like a dog returns to its vomit, but like it's gross because it's vomit. Like we know what vomit is, it's disgusting, but a dog doesn't know that because it's just operating off of instincts and seeing something on the ground and goes to sniff around it. And a lot of times we're like dogs, man. We try to go back to the place where we were just, figuratively vomiting, bro, and trying to sniff around it, trying to flirt with it. But God's like, bro, like you just vomited this out your life. I need you to go to something new. I got to help heal you and restore you. But you're trying to go back to the very thing that you just puked out. And ultimately, you're going to get more sick trying to consume that thing, man. So it's important for us to, really resonate with his protection and not, reject that. Because a lot of times we're trying to go back to the place where we vomited or where God was actually trying to reject us from. And then we end up in a further hole than when we were before.
So real, like God, like he doesn't give us things to save us from ourselves, And that's where a lot of things is where we get in the way. I remember this one guy, he said, man, we let this much flesh get in the way of so many blessings, And I think it's because that part of the flesh always wants to go back to the past, where it didn't have any limits, where it was just comfortable, to where it's like now, man, we're like, okay, I'm walking by the word, I'm trying to be cultivated by God. Like there's things I can do and there's things I can't do, So it's just like, man, like we have to make sure that we're just walking in the future, bro.
I think that's real. I got nothing to say. I thought I had something, but I lost it. Man, the train ain't coming back, bro. That thing long gone.
I think that our perspective again is key, because a lot of times we aren't seeing the vomit as the vomit. We're seeing it as cake, maybe. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, that ain't cake, bro. It tastes that way for a reason. That ain't cake, bro. But we gotta change our perspective on it. That was a toxic thing. God brought you out of it. Don't go back, bro. He's got you out of it for a reason.
You see it as cake, but some cake ain't healthy, man.
No cake. No cake, bro. They try to throw labels on it and make it good, bro. That thing said Best Buy, bro. You try to eat it afterwards, bro. You got no business hanging around that cake, bro.
Man.
For whoever that's for, bro. I don't know who needed to hear that, bro.
Hey, hanging around coaches. Hanging around cheerleaders, literally and physically.
It's bad, bro. I need to hear that 2 years ago, bro. I was flirting with that cake, bro. Had them long days, bro. Nothing but talk.
I don't even want to know.
You already know, bro.
February too. Oh, I'm scared of this.
You already know, bro.
Treacherous times, man. Treacherous times.
You, bro. That's a solid episode.
Fantastic.
We out,
back.
Dudes.